Hornsplitter was dead. His camp was gone. His name was already fading into the category of things Hernand would remember as a threat that did not survive long enough to become a real one. The battle that ended him had ended quickly and completely, the way Kliff tends to end things. But Hornsplitter's followers had not gotten that message yet. One of them, a goblin named Blix, had taken it upon himself to continue, to carry the banner forward, to be the next chapter of something that no longer had a story. Kliff tracked him down, killed his men, tied Blix up and handed him to the guards. Clean. Final. The sinister plans of Hornsplitter, what remained of them, closed. That was the end of it. At least, that is what I thought. A few days later, a stranger appeared in the crowd of Hernand, passed Kliff a note without a word, and vanished. The note was from Shakatu. Shakatu does not send notes unless something is already wrong. Shakatu was surrounded when Kliff arrived. The guild does not stop moving. There are always deals being closed, routes being confirmed, men waiting for decisions that only Shakatu can make. He cleared the room the moment he saw Kliff. That told Kliff everything about the weight of what was coming before a word was said. The Goldleaf trade sites were being hit, repeatedly, with a precision that went beyond bandit luck, the right locations and the right moments, when defenses were thinnest. Shakatu was certain someone inside the guild was feeding the information out. A traitor, operating quietly, efficiently, and with enough patience to have been doing this for some time without getting caught. The problem with investigating a traitor inside your own organization is that the moment the traitor suspects they are being looked at, they start covering tracks. Shakatu had a solution. Kliff would conduct a visible investigation inside the guild, obvious enough that anyone watching would focus on it. While that was happening, Shakatu would quietly work the bandit side. 2 tracks, both necessary. He handed Kliff an investigative log, 5 members of the guild, 5 statements about what they knew and what they had seen. The starting material for an investigation. I want to be honest about what I was expecting at this point. I have watched Kliff fight his way through a quarry full of men. I have watched him read the vulnerability of a rogue mining machine in 30 seconds and dismantle it. I have watched him track a creature made of dust across a mountainside and take the fight to 3 phases without stopping. What I had not watched him do, what I had not considered he would be asked to do, was sit with a ledger and 5 suspects and find the one thread that did not match the others. He read through the log. He asked no questions. He stood up and rode out. I adjusted my expectations upward and followed. The first stop was Bloomwood Ranch. Bleak managed the horses. Some time ago, a group of men had come to rent horses, masked, faces fully covered. Bleak had noticed anyway. One of them he was certain he had seen before, at the guild. He could not name him, but he would know the face. Kliff found the horse hire ledger. 3 brown Herspia stallions, rented. The name recorded was Zelmiger. He noted it. Moved on to the trade manager Skrav. Skrav had been waiting to talk to someone. He laid it out with the urgency of a man who had been running the same calculation over and over and kept arriving at the same answer. The trade routes were being leaked. There was no other explanation for how the bandits were hitting the exact location and the exact moment on every run. And as far as Skrav was concerned, only one person had access to that information. Nogel, the other trade manager, who finalizes and oversees deals for Goldleaf Merchant Guild. Nogel was the prime suspect. Skrav was certain. Then Kliff looked around and found the trade schedule log. It recorded a silk trade, 12 bolts, 5 silver coins. Transaction manager listed as Nogel. But the log had been recorded by Skrav, which meant Skrav also knew the routes. His entire testimony had just pointed the finger at a man for knowing something that Skrav himself also knew. Kliff left the trading post without telling Skrav what he had found. Next, Kliff headed to the Coalvale workshop to talk with Grimsel, the ledger manager. Grimsel had resigned from his post as ledger manager after the guild's ledger went missing under his care. Taking responsibility, he said it was the honorable thing to do. He told Kliff he knew very little about the raids. He said a thief had stolen the ledger. Nothing he could have prevented, only something he could take responsibility for after the fact. And when Kliff asked if he had suspicions, Grimsel offered one without hesitation. Skrav. He had seen Skrav heading toward his residence the night the ledger disappeared. It was a clean, confident answer, delivered without agitation. When Kliff started investigating the surrounding area, he found a few things that would be vital to the case. A merchant delivery seal, an empty ledger cover, a proof of stay from an inn in Demunis, booked under the name Skrav. This solidified the suspicion on Skrav, since few things didn't make sense. Like, why was Skrav near Grimsel's house that night the ledger was stolen? And why was he staying at the Demunis Inn? Kliff said nothing to Grimsel about what he had found. He thanked him and left. Kliff's next stop was Unicorn Kliff, where Goldleaf's private soldier Catnam was stationed. Catnam's account was the one that seemed, on the surface, the least useful. He reported that on the night the ledger went missing from Grimsel's residence, not a single guard had seen anyone enter. Many guards posted. None of them spotted anything. The ledger was gone in the morning, and there was no account of how it got out. It baffled them, he said. Then Kliff found the guard's letter. A private letter to a soldier's family, the kind of thing that ends up filed with duty records and forgotten. The guard wrote about the watch, about standing from dawn until dusk, about how the days felt endless, about the exhaustion of a post that did not stop. The guard's report confirmed it. No unauthorized entry detected at Grimsel's residence during duty hours. Duty hours recorded as dawn to dusk. Kliff read both documents. The guards had not failed. They had watched perfectly, for exactly as long as they were supposed to watch. Whatever happened at Grimsel's residence that night happened after dusk. Skrav may have been smart, but he wasn't that smart. There was no way he could have infiltrated a heavily guarded location unnoticed. Something did not feel right about Grimsel's testimony. Nogel was the last stop and the most revealing. Every trade the guild had made recently had been hit. Nogel had been covering the losses himself, taking the financial strain personally, paying guild dues out of his own account, absorbing what the bandits took so that the guild's operations could continue. The tax notice confirmed it. 12 silver coins, paid by Nogel, his own money into the guild's wound. The question that changes everything is simple. Why would a traitor cover the losses of the organization he is betraying? The answer is, he would not. Nogel was not the traitor. He was the man the traitor had used. The tavern ledger told the rest of it. Nogel and Grimsel. 10 bottles of wine at the Hernan Tavern, a night out between old friends. And during that night, Nogel had let the trade route information slip. Grimsel was a close friend, Nogel said. He had no reason to suspect him. Kliff thanked him and left. Kliff and Shakatu met back at the guild house and discussed what they had found. I want to describe what happened in this room carefully, because it is the part of this episode I found most unexpected. Kliff moved through the evidence the way he moves through a fight. Not linearly, not starting at the beginning and working to the end. He went to the weight first, the things that did not sit right, and from those, he built outward. Bleak's testimony confirmed there was a guild member working with the bandits. That was not in question. The question was which one. Skrav had accused Nogel, confidently. But Skrav's own trade schedule log, recorded in his own hand, showed that Skrav knew the routes too. His testimony had pointed at a man for a crime that Skrav himself had equal means to commit. Grimsel had accused Scrab, said he had seen him near the residence the night the ledger vanished. He also found the proof of stay booked under Scrab's name. All suspicion was on Scrab, but that changed. Catnam's testimony, which had seemed like a dead end, was actually the key. The guards had watched from dawn to dusk. The ledger disappeared. No one saw anyone enter. Which meant the ledger never needed to leave through the front. It needed to leave after dark by someone already inside. Someone who lived there. Nogel had no motive. He was paying the guild's losses out of his own account. His only mistake had been friendship, telling Grimsel the roots over wine. And then the name. Zellmeger. The name recorded in Bleak's horse hire ledger for 3 brown Herspia stallions. The man Bleak had recognized but could not place. Zellmeger. It is an anagram of Grimsel. He had rented the horses under a rearrangement of his own name. A man confident enough in his plan that his idea of a disguise was shuffling the letters of who he already was. The delivery seal at his workshop. No ledger manager needs one. The empty ledger cover from the ledger that was never stolen, that Grimsel had in his possession the entire time. The resignation from his post, not honor, cover. Distance himself from the stolen ledger before anyone looked closely at whether it had been stolen at all. Grimsel was the culprit, and he was still at the Coalvale workshop, confident he had gotten away with all of it. Kliff stood up. Grimsel was exactly where Kliff had left him. That was the thing about men who believe they have outthought everyone around them. They stop moving. They settle in. They enjoy the feeling of having won before the final result is confirmed. Grimsel was mid-payment when Kliff found him. Paying off his bandit contact, he said it would all be over soon. He said once Shakatu was gone, the guild would belong to the right people. He said it in the voice of a Hornsplitter follower who had been patient long enough and was now watching the payoff arrive. Kliff grabbed him. He said, "Shakatu was 10 steps ahead of you all along." He tied Grimsel up, put him on a horse, and rode back to the guild house. The ride was not long. Grimsel did not say anything worth recording. He dropped Grimsel at Shakatu's feet. Shakatu set down what he had found on his side. A falsified ledger, recovered from the bandit hideout. It laid out the plan, not just information leaking, but a full rebellion in the making. Shakatu driven out. The Goldleaf Guild taken from the inside, while the bandits applied pressure from the outside. Grimsel had not just been a traitor, he had been an architect. The man who had been running a quiet rebellion from inside the guild planted evidence in an inn across the region and resigned from his post with performed humility to avoid suspicion. He ended up on the floor of the guild house he had been trying to take apart. Shakatu looked down at him for a moment, then looked at Kliff. Nothing needed to be said. The rebellion died before it took root. Grimsel had been patient. He had been intelligent, but not enough. Because Shakatu had known something was wrong before Grimsel had finished setting the pieces. And because the man Shakatu trusted to find, it had walked into 5 interviews with a blank face and come out the other side, holding every thread. When Kliff got back to Howling Hills, there was a shipment waiting. Goods from the Goldleaf Merchant Guild. Supplies for the camp, the kind of thing that makes a new settlement feel less temporary. And a note from Shakatu. The alliance held. It was stronger now than it had been this morning. I have been revising my understanding of Kliff for a while now. The quarry told me what he is in a fight. The beggar camp and the scattered clan told me what he is to his people. The devil of the reed fields told me what he is when the problem does not yield, and he has to absorb and adapt and keep going. I had him mapped as a fighter, as a leader, as the kind of man who builds things and protects things and occasionally tears things apart that deserve it. I am beginning to think the map is always going to be smaller than he is. The Goldleaf Alliance holds. The camp grows. There are still Greymanes out there. He will ride out again in the morning.